Hey guys, welcome to the Cardistry tutorial. Today we're going to be getting into a very tiny move. I'm going to be sharing a ton of cardistry concepts as we mess with that move. So we're going to take that move and kind of make it your own throughout the video. So yeah, hopefully you learn a lot. Mainly we're going to be going over performance and we're going to be going over creativity. So I hope there's a lot of fun. My goal with this is that everyone walks out with a win, whether you're a beginner or super advanced. I want you to feel like you might have learned something. So let's get into it. Okay, so to start out, you're gonna have the deck and your non-dominant hand as the base position. This hand is gonna come in and take a top portion of the deck with the middle and thumb. Now you're going to simultaneously do this motion. All right, so I'll break it down. First, you're grabbing this and you're going to go from this position down. This middle finger on top to middle finger on bottom. So this creates a rotation. Now with this hand, all I'm doing, I'm going to take my index and push it up to my thumb and let it stall there. So again, grab the top packet, stall, rotate the hand. And you're gonna hopefully do those at the same time. So, boom. You can see how they kind of counter each other on that motion. So you get here, and now all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab this with my ring finger, with my index finger, and then I'm just gonna take my thumb, slide that down into the base of the hand, and I'm gonna let this stall go down and just drop it. Then I catch it with my thumb. Right, so this hand turns, grab this packet by the corner. You can kind of copy this grip, right? Boom. All right, so it might not look great yet, and that's because I haven't taught you any of the subtleties. Mechanically, you can get through this move and it won't look good if you're not performing it well. So I want you to think about, maybe out of my performances, which one did you like the best, right? And then I kind of want you to emulate that one. So if you saw me maybe pause right here and then I went down, or maybe I really accentuated that turn and I even went around the bottom of my hand, or maybe, you know, there's something about this where I kind of dropped it more rather than really placed it down, right? So kind of starting to develop an eye for what you like. You can even pause and restart and then go again, or do whatever you like, right? So from here, I can keep holding it even. That's very subtle, but this subtlety is something that you might like and might be making a world of difference to you. Move, if I were to teach you like my subtleties on it, I didn't tell you guys that when I grab the deck, I'm actually elevating it into my hand first, and that's just a very small subtlety that adds a little bit more motion. So it goes boom, 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 right? It kind of adds a little piece to that movement, and how you do that is just grabbing mainly the two pressure points between your index and middle, and they're gonna kind of grip it, right? And then you can kind of pivot like this if you'd like. Then I'm grabbing with my middle and my thumb, and I drop, right? So that's kind of the motions I'm thinking about when I'm doing it, and that can kind of make a bit of a difference. Instead of like I'm going from here to here, right? It's kind of a more audible thing rather than like a visual thing, but honestly it makes the move a lot more satisfying. So when I'm rotating my hand, notice how I'm not rotating at the elbow. And I'm not straining my wrists a lot. This is a big problem for a lot of beginners. I want you to kind of see what it would be like if I kind of did that, right? There's something off, there's something shaky, and obviously I emphasized it, but like if I were to move my elbow, that looks terrible. Like, please do not move your elbows when doing cardistry, please, unless it's like very intentional. That is one of those things that you just got to get it right if you're going to do it, right? So have a good eye. Have a good eye for what you like, and I might not like it, but you know what I mean, like. Oh, and by the way, posture is like a really big deal. So let me just say, like, relax. Keep yourself relaxed. Keep yourself moving right. Make sure to take breaks. Don't sit for too long. Movement is medicine. I'm not like really swooping. I'm not moving my elbows around. I'm not clutching up my shoulders, right? You want to lose a lot of that tension and just focus on moving your hands around different points, right? So even like these motions can end up looking like really smooth, even though they're nothing. They're very just like, I can do these, but I'm not doing this, right? Actually, I'm realizing like if you do it too fast, then it looks terrible. So just keep these things in mind when you're playing with certain motions. Try to make them look good. Look at a camera, look at a mirror, and really focus on like, do I look good doing that move? Because that is a huge part of cardistry. Certain movements can come off as really awkward and weird. And then some movements can come off as very confident, and it feels like you're very good at handling a deck of cards or whatever it is. I mean, this could be life advice at this point. But like I said, I go into this grip, I put it into my hand, and then I turn. And then you might notice how I extend all these fingers so that there's a lot of space here to like push into, right? But with this rotation, right, I'm actually shifting this hand to face wherever the camera is. So that's something to keep in mind. Where are you filming or who is looking at you? If I have like specific angles I want to keep in mind that don't look as good, like maybe for instance this angle will look really bad. Think about how bad does it look from certain angles, how good does it look from certain angles. So all these subtleties are little things that you can implement. Obviously it's easier now that I'm telling you what they are, but when you start staring at people's hands and wondering why does this look good versus mine, you're gonna end up learning like a lot. So now I'm gonna kind of show you the mindset it takes to play with the move. So like I said, we're gonna be starting in the non-dominant hand, but I want you to kind of challenge that idea. What if we started here? What difference would it make? How much of a visual difference would it really make if I started with this hand and then instead of rotating this way, I actually grabbed upside down and then went this way, you know? So like we can start challenging every single point I made about this tutorial, right? So if I do this rotation and grab like this, right? What's stopping me from maybe changing that rotation to another one, right? So maybe instead I kind of want to do one of these or kind of get into another actual revolution. Maybe I want to pair it with a revolution cut. So this is kind of the mindset I want you to get into, and this is my mindset. I kind of challenge every single idea that I can get my hands on, and that's basically how you create cardistry. So if you actually think about how I made this move, it was actually another one of me challenging an idea. So the idea is that this move is one-handed and way too hard for most people. Eventually you should get it down. I'm not saying don't learn it, but it's way too hard at the start. So I said, I'm gonna make it two-handed. And then that's how I was able to create this little thing. Dissolved another move in order to create mine. And not all moves are like that, but this is a good example of how you can start getting into it, and then you can start doing it with things in real life. Like, I don't know, you might like this little ridge, and then you might see how it bends or flops, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna copy that into this, and then now all of a sudden I have this really weird spot to start with. And then you start bending more rules, right? So you're here, and then all this is happening, right? So that was actually really sick. Don't steal that. Okay, so now that we have a type of creative mentality, I'm gonna try to use it for this move. So the goal is gonna be just to get to a different conclusion. Maybe we can find a way to really make it cool, but that would be like the ideal. But whatever it's gonna be different from just that. So I'm going to kind of walk you through my mind as I'm doing it. Hopefully it's coherent. You can do this by yourself. You can kind of maybe follow along the mindset. Maybe only use the audio and then like see where you end up, and I'll end up in a different spot. It's really up to you, but I'm gonna start by just looking at the move, seeing where it's at, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And what I don't like about it is that it's a very short move that doesn't accomplish a lot. And the fact is that a short move can be good, but it has to accomplish something within that time to make it worth the time that's being spent, right? So in all this time, there's not much that I really like about it. And that's just me, right? Personally, I don't like what's going on. That's kind of funny. So I kind of doubled the rotation by making it and then swooping the other fingers around and letting it fall off my thumb. That's not really that fun though. I really do love this position. It's a very powerful spot to be, where nothing is connected, but there's some alignment between these two packets, right? So I really like how this gets maintained throughout the cut. I reached this, and this is a really interesting position to be in, where the faces are kind of able to be at any degrees we choose it to be, and they can be in line or they can be, you know, wherever, but you can choose to make it symmetrical. So that's an interesting idea, that I can force it to kind of be like whatever I'd like here. Kind of play with this shape we're creating, and I think I'm already kind of there where I like what's being made. Right here is kind of pretty interesting to me. I kind of just stripped a card off because in my mind, honestly, I didn't want it to be like a 2-packet cut. So this is like a good compromise for me. I can kind of twirl it around the index. That was interesting. I really prefer this. I'm just gonna kind of stick with this. That's just freestyling. So, I mean, I think we ended up at a pretty good spot. I ended up getting to something like this, and it was very quick and very easy because I was able to spot out what I did and didn't like pretty quick in the move. I didn't mention this, but in my head, I was automatically thinking that this to this was very limiting for me, because you go from having a two-handed move that's moving in sync to a one-handed thing that's just sitting there. And this is a very basic position in cardistry. Eventually you'll see it more. So I just didn't want to limit myself to that, and I immediately thought I wanted to stay out here for something, and if I'm going to bring the hands together, it needs to be for a different reason. So yeah, and it ended up being pretty effective for me, at least. Maybe not for other cardists, but I just like the way it feels in my hands. So yeah, I hope that was good. The amount of things you're able to create is insane. Like, there is so much out there. And also, if you ever get demotivated, I mean, take breaks, do other types of moves, learn about cardistry. I think I'll make a video on motivation to create later, but I hope you guys got the tools necessary to create whenever you feel like it. It should be a really easy process. It should be something you can just do. So what I recommend from here is that you learn some moves and really get inspired and educated on all the other cardistry that's out there. Because a lot of what I was doing was based on the fact that I knew what people were and weren't doing.
So when I got to this position at the end of the move, I was like, I've seen everyone do this, I'm not going to do this. And that was it. You know, that was like all it took. But I could also think, oh, I've seen a lot of people do this. What can I do different that they don't do, right? And then all of a sudden I can choose what's, you know, what am I feeling right now and where do I want to go from here. So that's kind of how you do cardistry. Be a bit aware about like what's going on around you in order to create something mesmerizing for like everyone. But if you're just creating for yourself, then keep it that way and have fun. Just to reiterate, like this is kind of a conceptual piece about what cardistry is, but it's not all encompassing, right? So like I kind of gave you that idea of like being creative and then being performative, but it doesn't mean I covered like every form of creativity or every form of performance. I just kind of gave a more basic take to be analytical essentially and to challenge. So those are like my two main ideas or main takeaways from this video. If you wanted maybe more mindsets, more full thoughts, I can do that, or I can even get other cardists to show theirs, maybe if they're willing to join me on this. All right, so that was cardistry. I hope that everything kind of came together in a decent way for you and you were able to use the information to kind of make your own move. And if you do, tag me in a video of it. I'd love to see it, and I can give you feedback, or I can, you know, hope this is something you can maybe come back to every so often and kind of reassess where you're at. Yeah, and I also realize like I'm not going to be great at this right off the bat either. So if you can write me some feedback in the comments, I'd actually love that. By the way, a lot of people are asking me about what cards to use. If you wanted, you could get some bikes. These are like cheap $4 maybe. I actually have a promo code for Illusionist, and they should have some bikes on their website as well as more custom designs if you're looking for that. Code it's Cardistry, 10% off, and hopefully that helps me out make more videos for you guys. So